Welcome to Gillette Stadium, everybody. I'm Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist Christopher Price of WEEI.com. Chris, the Patriots are still undefeated, 4-0. Again, another tough road test as they go to 2-2 Cincinnati, Paul Brown Stadium on Sunday afternoon to take on a Cincinnati Bengals team that, quite frankly, is really hard to figure out.
Yeah, they really are. I think that they have a lot of great skill position, not just skill position players, but a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. You look at Geno Atkins and you look at, A.J. Green, and a lot of those names jump off the page at you, and a lot of those numbers jump off the page at you. It's debatable as to how much they've been able to bring all of that together when it comes to actually executing on the field, but I think it's going to be a real test for the Patriots. I think it's going to be an interesting game.
And obviously, the Patriots are coming off what has to be an emotional high, beating a tough Atlanta Falcons team on national TV, 30-23, making Aqib Talib saving the game on the last play of regulation and really showing what he is made of. Some news this week here at Gillette Stadium, and maybe Danny Amendola comes back this week for the Patriots, but a new wide receiver in camp, and that would be Austin Collie. The Patriot fans know him, of course, from his days with the Colts, but what can you tell us, and what do you sense about his role?
I think it's going to be interesting the way he tries to get assimilated to this offense. I don't know. I don't know if it makes much sense, at least on the surface, because you have some other guys there. At least you have some depth at that position. I wonder if he's Amendola insurance. I wonder if he's long-term insurance for Julian Edelman, because Edelman's here on a one-year contract, and maybe you want to build in a guy like Collie and kind of get him used to the system and kind of get him up to speed. So it's going to be interesting to see what they have in store for him. Although at first glance, I don't know if he's going to be a long-term guy. I don't know what kind of impact he's going to have on this offense, at least from a short-term perspective, this week especially. But, down the road, you're talking about a guy who's had some injury issues, concussion, knee problem. He had a tryout with, he was in camp with the Niners this summer, and he wasn't able to stick. So I'm intrigued, I'll say that, but I don't give him, I don't know how long he's going to be here.
All right, Chris, obviously, let's stick with the Patriots' offensive side of the ball. And you had a column this week in WEEI.com about how interesting it is for the Patriots to change their gears or not change their gears, as it were, this year. This year, the Patriots are doing some different things on offense. What did you write about?
I think it's you have to remember that a lot of it is tied to personnel turnover and, so many new faces at tight end and wide receiver. But I've never seen a team have the same quarterback, the same coach, the same offensive coordinator, but change offenses so radically over the course of 1 year to the next. There's so little no huddle compared to the last couple of years. There's more of a running back by committee this year as opposed to the last couple of years. So they're really changing a lot of things. Although history tells us that they did the same thing between 2006 and 2007. They did some of it on the fly in 2010. So we really shouldn't be surprised. But it's a really dramatic change from some of the stuff they've done over the last couple of years.
We've really had a lively debate in the media workroom a little while ago about how should the Patriots attack the Cincinnati Bengals this weekend. And really what it comes down to, Chris, is who wants to set the tone? Do you want the Bengals to set the tone, or do you want to do what you feel comfortable, and that is with the Patriots so far this year, definitely running the ball more than passing, even though you have Tom Brady as quarterback. I think you're doing the Bengals a huge favor if you run at their defensive line. Even though they have pass rushers galore, I think you're taking a lot of heat off their secondary that you don't have to if you run the ball. What do you think?
I think you have to place it in context. I think when you've seen the Patriots run the ball successfully over the course of the year, it's been in under the guise of complementary football. And you have to be able to mix run and pass well. You have to be able to offer something out of play action. And I think that's really something that they've done very well over the course of the year. So if you mix it up, you can't be a singular team. You have to be a multiple team. You have to be able to present multiple sets. And I think that's one of the things the Patriots have to understand going into this game against the Bengals. You're not just going to be able to run. You're going to have to be able to mix. They were able to mix it up a little bit in the Falcons. I know that first touchdown drive they had, I think it was 10 runs and 2 passes. I think you're going to need to do a little bit more mixing up when it comes to this week against the Bengals.
Brian Hoyer, former Patriot quarterback, had 2 touchdown passes against this Bengals team, drove the length of the field, 91 yards for the game-clinching touchdown in Cleveland last weekend. So I think the offense certainly has the opportunity there to make some big plays through the air. It'll be fascinating to see how it unfolds. Now let's turn to the defensive side of the ball. Aqib Talib, we mentioned it earlier, about the kind of game he had last weekend. I think, and I wrote on Sunday evening after the game, he's playing the best corner of any defensive back in football right now. Your thoughts?
I think he is in that group. I think he's in that conversation with guys like Richard Sherman when it comes to the best defensive back in the game at this point. I will say this. He was thrown at 7 times on Sunday. No completed passes. He did take the one penalty, the defensive pass interference penalty. I think he is the most impactful defensive back that they have had since Asante Samuel back in 2007. I think it's a little bit unfair to judge a cornerback by interceptions. You have to look at the totality of his work, but you can put him in the same conversation now after 4 games that you had Asante in back in 2007, that you had Ty Law in back in 2003. I think it's going to be really interesting to see where they go from here with him, and I'm talking about down the road. But I think right now, he is the kind of guy who could change a game, who really has the ability to change a game. He's one of the handful of defensive backs who has an ability to change a game. The thing that stands out for me the most, I don't think we've talked about this enough, his wingspan.
Yes.
He can play with a finesse, but he also has a physical ability, and he brings that wingspan to the field that just is an absolute bear to get past if you're a wide receiver. And we saw that with the pass breakup at the end of the game where he reached around Roddy White and knocked the ball away. So that's one of the things that I think a lot of people forget about him. But he's a game changer, at least for the Patriots defensively.
Well, I think, certainly he's going to be tested again this week in A.J. Green. Bill Belichick was raving this week here at Gillette Stadium about A.J. Green. Not that he can just run great routes, and he does. Every great elite wide receiver does run great routes. He can separate so quickly off the line of scrimmage, and that to me is a little bit of the difference between somebody like a Julio Jones, a Vincent Jackson, great receivers in their own right, don't get me wrong, but the fact that A.J. Green can separate and he's a 6'4" athletic downfield receiver, that's a different ball of wax.
I wonder if we're going to see Talib, and we saw it a little bit on Sunday night where they kind of mixed up coverages a little bit, and Talib spent some time on Roddy White. I wonder if we're going to see a situation where Talib ends up spending some of the game, at least a handful of snaps, on Jermaine Gresham, because Gresham projects he's a tight end in name only, but he's a little bit more of a physical wide receiver type. So I wonder if we're going to see a little bit of a change up there from Talib. But I think, again, like we said before, Talib is an absolute defensive game changer, and I think he is one of the most important, if not the most important guy the Patriots have this week on the defensive side of the ball.
And I'm really interested to see how the Cincinnati Bengals run their 2 tight end sets. Obviously, they stole it from none other than the Patriots with Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski's success over the last 3 years. They have the rookie out of Notre Dame, Tyler Eifert, and they have Gresham, as you mentioned. It'll be really interesting to watch that. Another player I think fans should really keep a very close eye on for the Bengals, number 25, and that would be certainly the rookie that everybody is talking about out of North Carolina, Giovanni Bernard. I think he has a lot of James Brooks in him, same type of dynamic back. Bill Belichick mentioned that this week. Your thoughts on Giovanni Bernard and what kind of challenges he presents that the Patriots haven't seen so far this year?
It's a difficult matchup. It is. Those backs have always traditionally given the Patriots a little bit of problems, and I think when you get him working together in that offense, when you look not just Bernard, but you look at having to pay attention to him and having to pay attention to the 2 tight ends and having to pay attention to A.J. Green, there's some similarities here to what they had last week with the Falcons with so many talented skill position players. You kind of spread you out a little bit, and I think the Patriots, we saw last week, they did a good job defending all of those options. Now, the Falcons were a little bit banged up, and Roddy White wasn't at 100%, but the Patriots did a very good job defending all of those options across the board, with the exception of Tony Gonzalez. They might take the same kind of tack this week and focus on one thing and say, all right, look, like the Patriots last week said, if Tony Gonzalez is going to beat us, Tony Gonzalez is going to beat us. Maybe that's one of those situations where they look at everyone else and they look at Green or they look at Bernard. History tells us that Belichick takes one thing away. I wonder if, I don't want to say they're going to let Bernard get some yards, but maybe they're going to focus on some other areas and focus on Bernard. I don't know. It's going to be a priority situation when it comes to slowing down a guy like that, though.
But, Chris, you would agree he certainly is a guy capable of explosive play.
He is. He's tremendous. And this is a Bengals offense that is incredibly capable of explosive plays in terms of big plays. Those 20-plus, those 40-plus is, those chunk yards can really eat you up if you're not mindful when you're facing the Cincinnati offense.
But everybody in Cincinnati who follows the Bengals knows that they're going to go as far, especially offensively, as number 14, Andy Dalton, takes them. He's in his 3rd year out of TCU. Marcus Cannon, the Patriots offensive lineman, used to be his left tackle in college, so there's that tie-in, that storyline to this game. But
Josh Boyce as well. Josh Boyce played with him at TCU as well, for a year. So there are some crossovers here. We also talk about Ben Jarvis Green-Ellis, who had great success here. Right. So there's a ton of crossovers when you're talking about the Patriots-Bengals matchup.
And I got to tell you, Chris, Andy Dalton I think there's a lot of pressure on him. He usually doesn't have two very bad games in a row. He had a bad game in Cleveland by his own admission, by the offensive coach's own admission last week in Cleveland. You got to expect he's going to bounce back.
I wonder how they're going to go about defending him. We talked about defending all of those other skill position players. I wonder if we're going to see a situation where they treat him as a pocket passer. Maybe it's going to be fascinating to see the defensive game plan this week when you're talking about the Patriots going up against the Bengals, because Dalton does offer some quality on that side of the ball. He's one of the better quarterbacks they faced to this point in the season, but how they go about defending him, how they go about getting after him. Are we going to see Chandler Jones kick back inside to that tackle spot, especially with no Vince Wilfork? I wonder if we're going to see that more often this week. So I think the Patriots want to present that offensive line with a few different looks when it comes to that pass rush.
Talk briefly about Vince Wilfork, how the Patriots short-term go about replacing the All-Pro who had Achilles surgery on Tuesday.
You don't replace him with one guy. You replace him with multiple guys. I think the Patriots are going to offer multiple defensive fronts. I wouldn't be surprised to see a three-man front. I think one of the attractions to playing good complementary football is that you force the other team to keep up with you offensively. And I think one of the things that the Patriots want, they want the Bengals to throw the ball. They want the Bengals to have to throw the ball to get back into the game. And if the Bengals are throwing the ball, that means you're going to see more two-man and three-man defensive fronts from the Patriots. And the Patriots, I think that's what New England wants ultimately, because you don't want to get in a situation where you're going to have to load up front to try and stop one of those running backs. If you fall behind the Bengals, they're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to control the clock. I think it's absolutely key for the Patriots to play good complementary football, make the Bengals throw the ball to get back in the game for several reasons, not the least of which you want to minimize the impact of losing someone like Vince Wilfork.
Patriots are used to other teams having measuring stick games against them. What do you think happens?
I think the Patriots win this thing, but just barely. I do. I was very impressed. I picked the Falcons last week, but I was very impressed by the Patriots, their ability to play well in a difficult environment, the mental toughness shown on both sides of the ball, especially on defense after losing someone like Wilfork, and their ability, again, to play good complementary football and run the ball, play good, tough, physical football. That's absolutely key this week when you're going up against Cincinnati. It's not going to be easy, but I think New England wins this thing. I'm going to say 27-21.
Will the Patriots be 5-0 when they come back home in a week to prepare for the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees and company, who going into Week 5 undefeated as well? He's Christopher Price. I'm Mike Petraglia at Gillette Stadium, WEEI.com.